Yes, indeed, one has to ponder whether BMW hasn't actually truly done a perfect job with the iX2. I absolutely, without a doubt, tell you no, they haven't, for one very specific reason. The remaining part is simply vastly convincing, just as I showcased at the world debut. And I was quite surprised myself by the looks of this car. To me, it's like the Skoda Enyaq from BMW. So in terms of usability, practicality, BMW actually has a very solid concept behind it, but they do make a mistake, in my opinion, and it'll become apparent in this video. And then you can decide if the iX2 is going to be your brand new, ideal, perfect electric vehicle companion, yes or no. If not, you'll naturally find many counterparts on the market by now. Similar in its core structure, because it's somewhat akin to an SUV, but then again, not exactly so. The Skoda Enyaq, for instance, would be a competitor. In terms of vehicle length, it's about the same, give or take, the VW ID.4. Then one might even mention the Hyundai Ioniq 5. So cars with a good trunk volume, not too huge, really have this one as a serious competitor. But you'll certainly find all of them on Avium, of course, since there are nearly about 8 there. Electric cars to find, and a cost calculator, for instance, which I recommend eagerly, because many are jumping from combustion engine level and might want to know, what do I save with an electric car, once in money, but also in CO2 emissions. So check out Edium, and today we're driving with this dreamy backdrop, truly just mind-blowing even. If we don't have any sun, the iX2 on camera. Today it's Consti, thumbs up for him. It's not always easy for the cameraman and host to interact when they don't know each other, but we handle it quite cool, I believe. Write in the comments if you like it, and then let's start. Welcome, my friends, to Maniac. I will not keep you in suspense with the downside. You could piece it together if somewhat knowledgeable. We'll certainly try it out later on the freeway at the most appropriate speeds, I distinctly promised. Whether the car really carries the heavy load it bears, or if that's just theoretical and doesn't hold up in practice. One thing bothers me about the iX2, and that's the rather small high-voltage battery. For a car of this size, at 455 meters, I'd actually expect a competitor, because when you sit down, look at the market and consider the cars mentioned: Skoda Enyaq ID.4, Ioniq, Kia EV6 has indeed beat me to death. Indeed, they all carry a minimum of a 77 kilowatt-hour battery. And that's quite a difference, because here you have 64.8. That's 12 kilowatt hours less. So on the highway, even without driving too incredibly efficiently, you still gain 50 kilometers more range. On the highway, that's reaching the charge station or not. The idea behind this is, I'm increasingly noticing at BMW presentations, they really focus on getting much more out of less. That means not always bigger batteries, large components, especially with that statement. Someone at BMW said that. I found it very, very good. They said, I now drive an iX50 in everyday life. And ultimately, I travel little by car, and I'm constantly lugging around a 105 kilowatt hour battery everywhere. He's right, actually. That's the point here. See, you don't carry that around. The question, however, is how this works as a replacement for the combustion engine, since this car aims to replace combustion engines. This isn't just a mere second car for that kind of money. Let me show you the prices. It's available with a combustion engine as a 35i, for instance. Yes, this one is to replace combustion engines. When you hit the highway, you need adequate range, achievable only through the principles of physics, specifically battery size, because we aren't there yet. To drive on the highway with 15 kilowatt hours, so a 65 kilowatt hour battery, I don't know, suffices for 400 kilometers. That's the issue, as I see it, really. I quite like the design a whole lot, actually. So I already told you this at the world premiere. We have quite suddenly got somewhat of a different taillight design implemented, which I have already shown you before with these teardrop shapes. This spoiler, this tear-off edge, camera here not hidden in logo, that would have been cool because, of course, it gets dirty. I'll write the towing capacity below for you so we don't dwell on it too long because, as I already showed you, in terms of a world premiere. But what I truly want to show once again, for those of you who haven't seen the video up until now, is this very specific demonstration. This is not just a small tripod, folks, it is actually a massive beast. And the trunk is exceptionally spacious for its class. So, for 455 meters, that's quite adequate. It's 560 liters. And if you fold down the back seats, I can at least show you the right side. Just like that, you see it from the back. I'm doing it from here. Just that it's expandable. Of course, when you skillfully flip both sides naturally, that's easily done from here. So here you've got yourself a nice flat surface. You can, of course, flip the other side as well. Naturally, also, the middle part for the ski bag, that's top notch. This is a family car, so you can indeed travel with it. You know, I'm a trunk person with 3 kids, which I always talk about. So this is really top-notch in terms of practicality, and especially because it's not overly long, being just 4.55 meters. Just for comparison, the Smart Hashtag 3. It's 4.40 meters, so just 15 centimeters shorter than this one, and it's already an SUV. There are 2 engine options, the 30, the 20. The 30 here has 313 horsepower and is even more powerful than the top combustion engine model, the 35i, which comes with 300 horsepower and 400 Nm of torque. This one model can even manage 495 Nm, and of course, being purely electric, it also always has instant torque available. However, it's slightly slower to 100 than the 35 model. Namely, this one takes 5.6 seconds, and the 35i takes 5.4. So we're talking about 0.2, you might not even notice. But when it comes to driving dynamics, since it's a BMW, absolutely no compromises are made. It's got plenty of steam, meaning enough butter under the hood, and truly a very solid, very impressive appearance. Some people may possibly say that the front headlights might indeed just be somewhat bulky, somewhat quite large indeed. Perhaps they could have been made a bit more sophisticated. But otherwise, it truly is a very, very nice car, complete with the mandatory grille, naturally lit all around. That is exactly how it should be, and it should be precisely this size, so you do not blend into the crowd. So that's the impression for now. I did show him to you at the world premiere after all. What's much more crucial for us now is how it drives, how efficient it is, how it charges, and what someone who has perhaps never driven a BMW before needs to adjust to. In terms of the navigation system, in the sense of route planning, software and stuff like that, that's always very interesting. Maybe you already own an electric car coming from that, and I, of course, want to lend you a helping hand. Off we go, let us begin to drive. I need to directly commend 2 specific people now. Individual number 1 is in fact Oliver Sieghart. I do not know him personally, but to give credit, because he is actually the head of interior design. And with this car here, ensured that they didn't just go with the flow of pragmatism. Clearly it is just a display here, no buttons, just precisely like that. That I am not a fan of. I deeply, profoundly, and truly feel thoroughly sense the car's very own unique, distinct, unmistakable vibe. And yes, exactly just like this right here. Up here too, and right here, really soft, the fine casing of the Harman Kardon system. It's appealingly done, this design door handle. I find it very, very nicely crafted. What I simply don't find particularly appealing, and I really feel I must say it, it's not exactly about the overall feel and choice of materials, but rather about the choice of materials, yes, but not down here, for instance. Cheapest plastic, the B-pillar, cheapest plastic and completely so. Not even half covered with cloth, as is often seen in cars, but really completely plastic. I find that really disappointing, but BMW is just top score when it comes to solidity. That's what I say, doesn't if i4, i5, i7, iX2. It's really, there's just no creak at all, man, and that's so incredibly insane. Not at all to be taken for granted. Because I do see it at Mercedes often, and with other brands too. It's just prison here in the door. Listen up. Nothing. Not a bit. I really have to yank it hard for anything to happen. Display, no, it's solid, no creaking. Why does that matter? Because creaking is a symbol of cheap manufacturing. And if something creaks when driving, or because I'm leaning on it or something, I don't want that while driving. Nice, some really don't care. But think, they won't buy a BMW either. So here too, this center console. How can something be crafted so solidly? That's fantastic in my eyes. But the choice of plastic, they could have made it a bit nicer. That needs stating quite unmistakably. Truly, it's docking points right now. I don't find it nice that it was done like this, but otherwise, everything that meets the eye here, the materials, the play, with the different materials here soft, up here also soft, that was done excellently. Yet right here where the window lifts are, it's just like with the i5. So why not here? Sadly, also very cheap plastic. They could have put something on it like metal up to the standard they usually uphold here. So Oliver Sieghart, his team, for interior design, great that you're not following the mainstream. Thank you very much for that. And then a big shout out to Christopher Weil. I mean, not Christopher Weil as in because, but his name actually is Christopher Weil. And he is actually a very creative and talented designer at BMW, and I met him last year in Portugal with the i5. And it's kind of like, you have to imagine it as the George Clooney of Bavarian Motorworks. So when he takes his kids to school on those specific days he does, you can absolutely bet even the moms who desperately wanted to sleep in are taking their kids to school just to catch a glimpse of Christopher Weil, a real George Clooney type. I'll put a photo up on screen, unsure if seen. In reality, he definitely looks like that. And he's responsible for the exterior design, and there you can truly see this aggression. Yes, we're making a big grille, we're creating these edges, we're doing it like this. Though it's an electric car, because we don't want to go with the mainstream flow. A BMW is not only just a mere car for getting from point A to point B, it's truly an emotional vehicle, and that's very good indeed. People like me who truly experience cars welcome that. Much. How does it drive? So there are two engine variations. There's the 20 model, which, as mentioned, is the 20 model. The 204 horsepower to the front axle is not for me the definition of BMW. Front wheel drive was always about the rear, or at least all wheel. And then there's the 30er, this one with the 313 horsepower and the all-wheel life. That's more akin to something where you certainly have driving dynamics. Front, particularly with electric cars, I think is really not such a nice thing. But what about overtaking and such related issues? We've got this My Mode can even easily overtake now. Here's the no overtaking sign, so we can't. Engage sport mode with this button. We've got buttons here too, I like that. We have a dial, I like that too, just for the feel of it. That not everything happens through the screen. We're moving away from switches, levers, away from turn signal levers, away from gear shifts and steering wheel buttons. Thank you for being so very remarkably normal in a very tactile sense, really, not just in touch. This touch nonsense, I just can't stand to see it anymore, because here I feel what I'm adjusting. We'll obviously test that with the assistance systems on the highway, but this is clearly just a BMW, and so of course it pushes, it propels forward. Instant torque, really cool, so you won't miss the 35i at the bottom end. At least the 35i isn't what it used to be anymore. Back when I had my last 1 Series, it was still a nice inline 6-cylinder. Nowadays, 35i sadly only stands for a 4-cylinder with 300 horsepower. And then you'll notice right here, yes, it moves forward, so you're not making any compromises in terms of performance and acceleration. At the top, it's really a different story. On the highway, we'll discuss it soon. But the suspension, typical BMW, you still feel it. I find that very good. So for all the buyers who just really want that same solidity still, the seats are really, really quite nice. They're also, by my definition, truly very cozy and very comfortable. I'm sitting comfortably here, still have headroom with my 6'2". That's the thing, where I believe one might actually feel quite compromised. That's likely in the back, because right just behind me there's a tripod, leaving hardly any space, so hardly any legroom at all. That really let me down at the world premiere, considering it's a 4.55 meters long car. The Smart #3 is 4.40 meters and offers significantly more space in the back seat. And I really don't understand why that happened with this particular car. Sure, it has a large trunk and a much larger trunk than a Smart #3. And somewhere you really have to pay the price. Those are, you see the three, look. And then you end up with less passenger space in the back. And that's particularly bad when you think about child seats with bases and stuff like that. Or even quite a somewhat really lanky 15-year-old will have trouble sitting behind me, for instance. And I'm not someone to slide the seat way back or anything of that sort. So the interior space concept here is great up front. However, I do wish I could lower the seat a bit more. Unfortunately, I truly can't do that. I feel as though I'm quite high, the roofline doesn't bother me, but I'd still like to lower the seat just a bit. There's just not that much space in the back, really. That's something to be aware of when purchasing this car. But it's X-Drive after all. You notice right away it immediately lost traction and then regained it. It's very, very slippery here, so very wet here. So with front wheel drive, you would have slid off somewhere by now. It really takes off now in sport mode, so it got a bit sideways. Of course, that certainly does not really happen at all when you're actively engaged in My Modes in personal or in normal mode, because then it naturally allows much less. Slip. Now let's quickly accelerate from 75 to 120 in normal mode. As you can clearly see, it's quite snappy. Not at all a rocket. Many folks simply do not want that. People simply want something fairly solid, genuinely, truly capable of, in the end, to speed up nicely when particularly a crisis demands it, or when simply you're in the mood for it. And indeed, you can achieve that with 313 horsepower. Still, it's not a rocket. You should know, BMW seeks the perfect middle ground, not too big a battery, not too much power. Just so, the perfect middle, that's surely best, really. Regarding the Autobahn, there are, of course, points that make the BMW stand out. Very positively again. I am sincerely and genuinely thrilled and also extremely pleased with the quite exceptional BMW assistance systems. How they steer, how reliably they steer, you might have seen in the road trip video against the ID.7 and EQi. What's up with the weather in Portugal, my man? Feels just like in California with the Taycan, those deluge-like rains, though. Could have shot this in Munich too. If I had the chance, I would have done it anyway. So the fact that even in heavy rain, he just never ever turns off the steering assistant, can always find his way, even when you can barely see the lane markings anymore, I find that really, truly top-notch. So that is really awesome. And then let's not even start talking about this pro version of the steering assistant with the hands-off driving. This is the coolest I've seen. Hands off the steering wheel up to 135 km/h. Complete. If it suggests to you now to change lanes, which is possible now, you look in the rearview mirror, it signals, changes lanes just as fast as I'm doing it now. This is absolutely the best there is currently in steering assistance for the highway. And otherwise, I actually really quite genuinely do like the harmony, how this specific voice assistant system works very seamlessly together. He pulled out in front of us, still he braked ugly in front of me. Now he's braking on me, for instance, just as I was praising him. He's really tossing a wrench into my plans. But usually no harsh braking. The radar system is honestly forgiving, let's just put it simply that way. Then the adjustments here are indeed another matter entirely. You've got here ultimately a completely, absolutely incredible array of settings you can adjust. All right, it's still as ever fragmented, the system, in my opinion. For instance, I find it somewhat odd that one has to go into live vehicle here, and here can zero or refresh the driving information. We do actually possess a drive recorder. We indeed do have a YouTube application as well, and the game known as Air Console Games. That's really, truly cool at the charging station, just like Mario Kart. Seriously cool playing in high quality resolution. We have an interior camera, so basically a lot doesn't get left behind, only at a standstill. What for many other cars already gets left behind. YouTube app, so you can watch YouTube. I actually find that to be quite pretty darn awesome indeed. And you know, you obviously really do have an incredible, quite amazingly diverse array of settings for all of the various assistance systems. Yes, so that's something we already know from BMW after all, but as you can see, it's quite rugged. Should I not have already customized the menu yet, I will most inevitably run into a significantly challenging problem. Searching very diligently for exactly what I urgently need becomes exceedingly difficult. Because I'm searching for the assistance systems. Here's driver help. You can adjust so much around here. This operating system now also has a fairly new display type. It's now equipped with these particular tiles like speed limit assist, for instance, where it automatically adjusts the speed as well too. You can set tolerances right here, letting you say when a speed limit sign appears. Here in Portugal, you can actually drive 120, 130 into the city. You just set it to 10 km/h. You can make a second adjustment on how it reacts up to 60 km/h, because driving 10 over on the highway isn't the same as before. Driving 10 over in the city, you can indeed actually adjust quite a lot. I really, really think it's absolutely great. Yes, but the menu is just a little bit fragmented, honestly. So we have, of course, typical SUV comfort, if you will, since the car really does ride very, very smoothly. You really can't complain there. Everything that concerns. Suspension, of course, and acoustics I find to be very, very good. Something's rattling here, but I'm guessing it's something from the tripod. I wouldn't want to jinx it now. Otherwise, the acoustics here are tip-top. Yes, and I actually simply just have an awesome, solid, very distinct and clear feeling while driving this car. Yes, it's actually just pure fun for me. The navigation system, the next very, very important topic. Anyone coming from a different brand, from a combustion engine or even an electric car, you see this here. This spot before you marks the electric vehicle charging station, DC, 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 DC. Indeed, an HPC is present too. Now, I have a very important point to make. You see, there's always like dinner in the evening at these drive demos, and I just sat down with BMW, and I really think it's super nice that they ask you what can still be improved. And they also said our software development department regularly watches your videos very closely. That's why it's good to mention it now and then. And you keep commenting. For instance, it's crazy. Yeah, when I connect the i5 or the i7 to the charging station and it goes, hey, with this percentage, you'll reach the next one, and then it stops charging. Completely bonkers, I told him, please take it off. It's just exasperating. Then they asked, what else do you see? And one thing that strikes me is that you see the charging stations here, so HPC, DC, and then you see this HPC is, for example, not available because it's red or it's yellow and green. What exactly does that imply? Wouldn't it be significantly simpler if, perhaps just like both Mercedes and Porsche, the precise position of the station always remained completely visible regardless of the zoom level applied? Whether you're very zoomed in or if you're extremely far away, it clearly states 2 out of 4. Thus, you can easily check to see what availability exists. It's quite good for unplanned stops. So I'm accelerating a bit uphill to 120. Let's see. Yes, in normal mode, it's doing well. Yes, engaging cruise control, there we go. So it's not just on the fly. Look how many charging stations there are here. Brutal. But I can also see how many are available out of how many here. When I'm just about to exit, I see, whoops, one's right there. Or not available, I don't need the exit. And they tackle the matter, passing it directly to the relevant department. And I find that super likable. And they take care of it. And with that observation, the synergy between myself as creator and you as viewership is vital, enabling us to implement things effortlessly. It gives the whole thing a completely different hearing than back in the days of print journalism. Because back then, producers didn't see comments, and if they do, it gets on your nerves. What I criticize, then they handle it. I believe that's good. Loading route planning, good at BMW. We drive straight ahead on the highway for a while now. That's why we'll try something now. And 2. Please, could you direct me now to Ambelham 1, Jeva, immediately? We're very, very far from this goal. You should know. Very, very far away. That's much computing. He must plan many charging stations. Of course, we must mention even a Tesla would have managed this in 5-6 seconds, as it only calculates with superchargers. This is indeed, of course, a massive advantage. One really has to know that. But he's still calculating, and I find BMW's route planning really, really good. Display stops, when, how, precisely where, and exactly why filters. The route is ready. We have really a lot of stops. As you can see, a total of 12 in number. And the journey will take, in this case, 1 day and 9 hours. 2,585 kilometers. Let's select this route. And then you have this here, how it generally goes. You can pull it out like this, and then you see here when the first charging stop comes, when the second charging stop comes, and so on and so forth. You can indeed choose to expand this specific section again. What I would, however, very much like to see now is exactly how long do I stop at each of these stops. I'd, for example, really quite like to see that. Can't see it here. That's also indeed a feedback, a very crucial improvement hint. When I zoom out here, I can see exactly how many times I hold. How long approximately that he writes here? Yes, 15 minutes, 63 minutes, no idea, whatever. But the whole route, you see, how it progresses, where I stop, how often. So I am indeed very, very pleased indeed, and in the end it was quite swift too. So, of course, he has to calculate it logically because he includes various providers. There's a spontaneous search. You can go here onto the charging station icon, and then you've already got charging stations in your vicinity. But please, could you just say here, okay, I really, really want 150 kWh charging stations for even much faster charging. And then it only shows that. And then you see everything here, spick and span. You can, for instance, just click on this one here, and then it calculates the route for you and gives more detailed info on it. What kind of provider is this? How many are available here? There are always extremely few HPCs in Portugal. In terms of the number of plugs, how many are open? So just like that. What would obviously be cool to know is what else is around here. Can you grab something to eat, drink here? Whatever. But the navigation works super smoothly too. What I find really, really important here is zooming in and zooming out. Check this out. It has absolutely no lagging anymore. So anyone who still says the Germans can't do it, can you zoom in like that even in 3D? Zoom out, it builds up super fast. You can also exit the map super fast and skip right into the next country. Anyway, regarding electric vehicle charging, the thorough planning, navigation, and overall comfort, BMW is truly top-notch. So they're exceptionally good at it. So dear friends, what is the current situation with the highway charging capabilities of the iX2? So here, what's happening, I always intentionally make it a point to always drive to Ionity, no matter where I am, all across Europe. I'm not just saying this only because I'm supposed to. I truly don't have to. Ionity is my ally, always communicate that very transparently. But for instance, I'm facing the issue here where at this charging station, the car stubbornly won't draw more than 106 to 108 kilowatts. It's definitely the station, not the car. I've never seen a BMW draw less power than promised. You're just wasting time with that. Yes, it's really not that terrible now, but it's certainly better if not in the end. So we have just these 109 kilowatt. I can't get the charging curve as perfect as initially wanted. The GoPro keeps falling off this pillar. So it's for concentration camp. I can show you briefly how the first, the first one, yes, 49% of it actually worked with interruptions happening over and over because the GoPro kept on falling off. In terms of pricing, it's the same across Europe. You pay 49 cents per kilowatt hour, moving straight to the iX2's consumption. 49 cents per kilowatt hour at a minimal mere €6 monthly fee for the Ionity passport. Really, that is actually utterly super fair as a price, isn't it? There are even some who pay 40 cents per kilowatt hour, even at home, so there, one really can't complain. That's why for me, reliability over experimenting with third-party providers in countries, I just don't like it. I'd rather take a short, albeit cumbersome route, but there I plug in and it works. It just fits. But if we're talking about price now, of course, I've balanced out the consumption topographically again. So this specific column beeps like absolute hell. Ionity columns, I clearly did a test years ago, back when Ionity wasn't even my partner yet, were, by the way, the quietest columns tested that simply made no noise at all. Just like this beeping, like the eFaceit columns from a Lego back then. He used 25.8 kilowatt hours. Topographically balanced means I went one way 27 kilometers, in the other, took values divided by 2, ending at 25.8 kilowatt hours. That's quite a surprising amount, because when looking towards the Skoda Enyaq and VW ID4, they too achieved the same spectacle, but noticeably below that. However, you should know this is the worst scenario. I always drive at 130 km/h, entirely steady. You can't often manage that on the highway. Always must slow down due to speed limits, left lane hogs, construction work. It boosts your usage indeed. In post, someone firmly asserts, I surely don't use as much as Maniac does. Says yes, because Maniac drives 130 km/h steady, worst case scenario, you see highway. So had privilege, really 130 km/h. I didn't have to brake a single time during the entire efficiency test. And that's how I got to this level. 25.8 kilowatt hours. In urban areas, you'll be significantly below that. BMW is known for its efficiency, even though the vehicle is built on a combustion platform, just like the i4, just like the i7, just like the i5. They always prove to be very efficient in urban settings. You can easily drive the car with 16 to 18 kilowatt hours at moderate temperatures for approximately 100 kilometers. And there, it looks quite different, does it not? How much do you pay at home? So what is actually your current electricity price? I myself pay 29 cents per kilowatt hour, and that's via the municipal utilities. However, you guys have the chance to save money with a new Maniac partner. Yes, this is of course product placement, but one you surely benefit from, because if you drive a BMW and BMW released the interface for this, Mercedes hasn't, for example, so I can't use it. You can save 10 cents per kilowatt hour through IONT. This means that you'll get a price from IONT, which is usually the same as your current providers. For me, example, it's 29 cents via IONT, 28 with city services, so no difference. You can check it out on the website. You just enter your email address. Consumption. How many people are in your household? You'll get an offer on electricity costs for you. And from this electricity rate, you can then deduct 10 cents per kilowatt hour if you give your car time to charge in the IONT app. This means plug in and say, okay, car's charging now for 10, 12 hours. Because it's the weekend, then IONT has the opportunity to trade electricity. IONT trades electricity and also has large battery storage, from which they can then divert power, all green energy, of course. And every 15 minutes, the algorithm checks, do I sell now or do I buy now? And the longer the car charges, the more opportunity E.ON has and the more you benefit from it, because you then receive these credits, with which you then save 10 cents per kilowatt hour. This means you could potentially, if you give the car sufficient time to charge, overnight, for instance, 19 cents per kilowatt hour to my address would cost, so 19 cents per kilowatt hour. And that pays off. If you always charge at home and calculate over a year, it can amount to savings of up to 400 euros. Depending on consumption, battery size, of course, that's really quite awesome. Check it out on the page I'm linking below. See for yourself what the app looks exactly like and download it too. There you can check to see if indeed your vehicle has truly unlocked the interface. It depends on the manufacturer whether they decide to do it. Please, I really urge you do it so the people can simply use such things and save money. So, charged at home, even without IONT, this car is ultimately much more efficient than the combustor on the highway isn't, because this way we get an IONT rate. Charging at 49 cents per kilowatt hour costs 12.50 euros per 100 kilometers in the BMW iX2. And with that, I truly believe it seems even more expensive than diesel fuel if you choose to drive with that. So much for that. Now it has dropped from 66% to 82 kilodollars. I believe that doesn't happen at a modern, well-functioning charging station, because it apparently needs to have a very stable charging plateau to reach the exact same time as smart #1 or 3, which surprisingly also makes 29 minutes with precisely the same size battery as here. Only it reaches 150 to 160 kilolov, probably holds a steadier charge at 130, likely keeps that up to 80%. I'd like to try it, but it's not feasible at such a cruddy station, unfortunately. What do we learn from this? Next time, Maniac goes the extra effort to drive the 100 miles to the IONT charging station when I'm in Portugal. Promised. Yes, friends, so the all-new iX2 has now once again demonstrated the typical BMW solidity. In terms of craftsmanship as well as appearance, it is, for me, rival to the Enyaq. And you know, I'm a big fan of the Enyaq. In my perception, two things. That might be a bit of a reason for criticism for you. One reason for me, so the consumption aside, the charging power, I don't understand why they went with those 130 kilowatt. So 170 or something would have been pretty cool. That way, with such a small battery, it could be, let's say, fully charged in about 20 minutes. So not full at 80%. I don't quite get that. So BMW is now veering off the road and saying, we're not going to go all in like with the iX and others. Or the i7, which is really like that. Top score charging capabilities, but within the 400 volt system have top score charging capabilities. On par with Mercedes too. I don't quite get that. So 130 kilowatt charging power, and then why, despite this already aerodynamic shape, just at these mandatory 25.8 kilowatt hours, which I've calculated, it's somewhat unclear to me at this particular point. In fact, he really does look quite snazzy, yes indeed. But long distance might be a bit tricky with that, I think, because it simply does indeed consume quite a bit, has a somewhat small battery and recharges at a smart #1 level, which is quite perceptibly different with the smart #1, since the smart #1 or the 3 series somewhat falls into the category of being considered a second car, which isn't the case. So what he sees as advantage can actually become a significant disadvantage. I don't know, thoughts? Comment below. I'm really curious about what you think of the results. So, when it comes to assistance systems, you won't find anything better right now. No doubt in terms of solidity, you won't get anything better. Those are the 2 points. Everything about charging, battery and consumption, if only the battery had like 82 kilowatt hours, then we could cope with the consumption, but then we'd need, again, just like now, a stronger, higher charging power. The iX2 is stylish. I think it's even, as it's a BMW, more stylish than a Skoda. But the Skoda simply has, or even the ID4, or even the Ioniq Kia models, just a better long distance capability because of the larger batteries and because of the larger or stronger recharging capability. That's simply just my conclusion here, just under the quite rare Portuguese sun. Yes, that's right. Back there we see the M35i. It has a somewhat more monumental spoiler, but it doesn't look all that different either. Also with the diffuser, it really is indeed a worthy electric. You simply have to deal with these kind of things I just told you about, and with significantly less space available in the back seat, but we indeed have a very big trunk for that purpose. Yes, it's quite the roller coaster of emotions. Well, anyway, subscribe to the channel, that makes me happy. Details can be located in the description, specifically concerning Ionity, to save on home charging costs. Thanks for watching. Thank you for your most precious thing, your time,